Welcome to Materials and Methods Matter. In this episode I will demonstrate a colored pencil illustration of a hibiscus. The first task is to pick a range of colored pencils that will be used for the illustration. For this demonstration I will be using the Koh-I-Noor Polycolor pencils. For the flower I've picked the following colors: pink, cherry red, scarlet red, delft blue, and white. For the stem I will be using grass green and dark brown. For the leaves I'll be using May green, sap green, dark green, Prussian blue, delft blue, red violet, and white. The paper I chose for this illustration is the Koh-I-Noor heavyweight drawing paper. It's 114 pound, 185 gram, fine textured bright white paper. The thing I like about this paper is the way the pad works. Basically, it's a spiral bound pad. My pages can be taken out, and when I'm finished I can reinsert the page back into the pad for safekeeping. I used an H pencil to transfer my drawing into my paper, but I don't want my lines to be too dark, so using a kneaded eraser, what I want to do is just dab the surface of my lines just to reduce the amount of graphite that's on the paper, because once I use my colored pencil I don't want to pick up that graphite, because the graphite will mix with the color and make it look dirty. To begin with, I outlined my flower with cherry red. I'll also be using the white, pink, scarlet red, and delft blue. And I begin with my lightest colors and work towards my dark. Let me pull up my reference here, my reference drawing that I'll be following. You'll notice that there's overturned leaves. There's also these white lines. So anyway, we'll be working in all these areas, and I'll start with my lightest color and move to the darkest. To begin with, since we have those white lines in there, I'm going to use my white. And one of the things I found is trying to put white in after the colors there is a little more difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in some white lines here. I have one here. I have one coming in this direction, and then I have another coming out this way. I also have, where I have this line here, I'm going to have one straight out here, one that curves around and this way, and then I also have one in this petal of the flower. So I'm going to go ahead and put that white line in, because when I go over that you'll see that it acts as a resist and allows me to then show that highlight. So I'm going to begin with my lightest color, which is pink, and this is actually on the underside of the leaf where it has turned over. So I'm just going to lightly bring some of this color in where the lightest color is on top of the leaves. For instance, in this area there's a light area, and I also have a little bit more up here. There is some in here, but I'm not going to worry about that one too much. What you're trying to do is actually build contrast, and so that's, you know, the difference between light and dark, which then defines what our flower is actually going to look like. So in some of these areas, and here I have an overturned petal. So in some of these where we want to create a difference in value, I'm going to actually come in and burnish a little bit with white, and what that does is it actually creates a little stronger color, blends it together, but not much, just a little, because I just want to And this one here is in shadow, so that's going to be a little bit darker, but we have some light area here. Next I will go with my cherry red pencil. Next we want to begin to define our shadows, and for this I've already started putting some of this in just to show. I'm using Delft Blue. Delft Blue is a blue violet, and it works great with the scarlet red and the cherry red because, as we know, red and blue, when they mix together, give us a nice purple. But you could see here from the reference where we're going with this, with the different shadow areas and how we can use this to actually define the shape of these petals. So let me continue on here, and we'll be explain more as we go along. So I'm just going to continue adding again lightly. We want to just get enough in here to define, and we can keep working it. I always work from light to dark, and of course in here where our darker areas, we can start to darken it a little bit because we know this is going to be where our darkest darks are, in here. It's probably our darkest is right here around that pestle. Now that I have my shadows in here, or at least started, I'm now going to add the scarlet red to here. This is now starting to really define these red petals, because we built up the base. Now we can start to really start to define the petals with their color. I'm going to start with this one in the back. Because it has, and I'm going a little bit darker, because some in the areas when I come down I'm going to go lighter because I can always come back in, but this far edge here is pretty dark. Same with this edge over here, so I can actually just draw that in and work from that value down. And I'm going to do this all the way around the flower. I'm going to start adding in this red and going over the top of our shadows. Notice here is that white mark that we put in before with our white pencil, and I can define that by just bearing down next to it with my red pencil. And there's another one in here, and I can preserve that because then that'll give us those white marks. There's also one in here, and then I have some here, so you'll notice those will start to pop out as we work. And of course I want to go over the top of my shadow color, because remember the whole flower is red, and it just has different values, and so we're going to go ahead and add in all this red, and then we'll be back. Now that I have a good base of my reds, I'm going to now use the cherry red and begin to burnish. And when you burnish, basically you're taking the pigments and compressing them all together and mixing, and you can see it gives us a nice bright color. Where I go over the shadow, it's going to darken that shadow for us. That's why we want to start out light, so when we get to this point we can almost predict what we're going to get. And so I'm going to go ahead and do my burnishing. We can also come back in certain areas. And also when I'm burnishing, I will not always press as hard as possible, because I can come back in with my other pencils, my other reds, and burnish with it. So I'm really going to be burnishing first with cherry red, and then in some areas I'm going to come back in and add the scarlet red. So let's move on and complete this task here of burnishing our reds. Now that we have pretty much our hibiscus flower done, we can always go back in again, like I say, and add a little more color to it. But this is just burnished with pencil. I didn't use any colorless blender or marker with it. So now we're going to work on our pistil and stamen, and this is that part of the flower that sticks out here. Down here we can make it a little bit darker, make it red, and then as we come forward it's going to be more pink, and I already laid that color in. Underneath we want to just add our shadow, and then for our stamens on the end I'm going to use May green and also my scarlet red, I believe it is. We're going to, first of all, we're going to put in these large stamens. These are the pods that actually will collect the pollen, which then fertilizes the flower and of course ends up giving us more seeds, more flowers. We're going to connect those dots just by adding these two. Make this a little darker. So I've added those first, and then what I'm going to do is take my Delft blue and just create some shadow, one underneath of these pods and then down the stem, just to give it some dimension. Okay, now I'm going to use my May green, and on this for the pollen, these pods that are all around here. Basically, I have some drawn in, but I've kind of lost them, so we're just gonna put some in here at random. These are sometimes a green, a gold. Sometimes they're really small. I've kind of exaggerated them a little bit simply because with the green and the red, it really makes it pop. So we're going to put in, like I say, a bunch of these. And of course what will happen is the bees will land on here, they'll collect the pollen, deposit it on the end of the stamen, and of course that's the whole scientific purpose of pollination. Once I get these in, make them round if in case they got oblong, because they are round. Like I say, I've exaggerated them, made them just a little bit bigger than sometimes they would be, only so we could see them. And it's part of the focal point of our whole flower here. Okay, I think that's enough. Now we'll take our scarlet red like a scarlet red. And what I'm going to do is with a sharpened pencil, I'm going to just connect the dots. These are attached to the pestle. And the lines don't have to go all the way down. If they come in or interrupted by another one, it's not a problem. Our eye tends to connect lines and dots. I think I need another one in here to break up this 1, 2, 3 pattern. So I'm going to put one in here and put one down in here to just break up that pattern, which sometimes gives us some monotony. We don't want that. The kind of things that bother us when we see them. I'm not quite sure what it is, but let's one more here. And there we have it. That's our pestle and stamen that's connected. Now it's time to work on the leaves and stems, but before we delve into that, I want to show you my original photo reference that I took for this piece of artwork, for this illustration. And you can take a notice of all the leaves that are in there. You're the artist. It is time for you to make decisions. Use your artistic license. What we need to do is put leaves in there, but we don't have to draw every leaf that's there. So from my photo reference, I ended up working with the illustration, and you could see that, you know, we want to have some leaves that look like leaves, and then we're going to have leaves that overlap in a variety of colors. Stems, I took a lot of background out, so we ended up with this nice white negative space that helps kind of pull our eye in and around this composition. So let's start with first lightly making sense out of what is here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and outline some of the leaves that we have, so we know where they're at when we start drawing. So I have one here behind, I have another one in here, and then we have this one in the foreground. I'm not going to outline them all solid, just lightly, because sometimes we're going to end up with leaves that have that variegated end, like in these, so we don't want to put green there. And again, when we have our lines being dark, take your kneaded eraser and take some of that pencil out of there, and then we can go ahead and begin to outline some of these. So for instance, I'm just going to lightly green here. I'm actually going to take my red violet pencil, which is going to have these tinges, and I'm just going to put some dots here where this leaf is. It's going to be green on this end here, so I can make a notation. So I'm just going to go ahead and make some kind of notes for myself as to where these go. The same is going to appear over here. We can exaggerate the leaves. We want basically an impression of a leaf that's there. So let me work on this, and we'll get back with the next step. Okay, now that I've outlined most of my leaves and redrawn some areas that were missing, let's begin by first putting in with our dark brown pencil. Let's add some of the stems, and again, just lightly. This always works in basically trying to tie everything together. So we have a leaf coming up this way, and I have just a small stem coming this way. We also have, and as we go, this will all come together. So the vein of this leaf in the back is pretty stemmy, has a lot of stem there, so we're just going to lightly put that in. There's also a bud here, a flower bud, which we're going to connect with a stem. And let's see, this one here connects down here. We'll come back in and we're going to actually add some material, some other colors here. But I want to deal with this bud first. I also added, before I do that, I added some light green on these just to give me an indicator that these are in the back, okay? But for this bud, what I'm going to do is I'm using the grass green, and which is a bright green. We use that over here on our pestals. And I'm going to go ahead and just put in the little bud leaves. Okay. I'm also going to use that same color in the bud. And then what we'll do is when we work with our color behind this, we'll make it a little bit darker so that this flower bud shows up. Now, flower buds always have some splits in them where they are going to be opening. So we're going to add in a little bit of our Delft blue here as a shadow color. I'm also going to add in some dark brown here just to give this a little darker shadow. Remember, our light is coming in this direction, so our shadow will be over on this side. So basically that's a very simple bud. Also, there are some shoots coming off, as often happens with flowers. These would then create new leaves or new flower shoots. So what I'm going to do is just kind of throw in a couple of those. I'm then going to take that grass green. Let's change that. Grass green works, but let's see. Yeah, it'll work. Okay, so we'll put some grass green in there. We can also use, let's see, because I had my numbers mixed up. This is grass green. That wasn't grass green. That was May green. So let's use our grass green, which is more of an olive green color. And what we're going to do is we're going to accent our stems, giving them kind of a greenish brown olive color. I'm going to use this on that. Also going to accentuate this and that for the back stem of this leaf. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my grass green to that. Okay, then I'm going to work with this leaf right here. Okay, this one here. It is variegated. Let me show you that one. It's variegated. It has a little bit of light pink purple on the tip. This leaf comes down this way and shoots up around, and then this one is in the background. So I'm going to work with this one first. Okay, let's continue on with our leaves here. I have blocked in some areas where I know where I want the green to go. And I'm just going to follow same suit as here, and I'm just going to work around and finish these up. I'm still using the same combination of pencils. I'm using May green. I'm also using grass green, sap green, and my dark green. I'm going to use my Prussian blue and also Delft blue in here, and then also some of the magenta for outlining the leaves. And not a complete outline, but just tinges of color as shown here. And that's what's again interesting about these leaves, is that they did have this other variations of color. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll just go ahead and finish putting in the magenta so you can see the actual outline of these leaves where they come to. And again, these leaves have a really a white, a kind of an off-white, a cool white, so that's why I'm going to use my Delft blue and Prussian, especially Delft blue in here, and also some of the what I call red violet is going to be used in these leaves. So I can, just to kind of define my marks where it goes. And what's nice about working with the light to dark is that, for instance, in here I know that I'm going to have to add some green, more green in here, a variegated color. And so I'm just going to go ahead and making color over the top of it, which is very nice. Also, there's a hole in the leaf here, which I will outline with my color, and any place else that we have little specks of green that we can stick in here. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and work through these. Okay, I filled in many of my leaves here, which can be the boring part, but it's great trying to develop those. But some leaves are just as important as our main subject, which is the flower. And this leaf here, which sticks out in this direction, kind of juxtaposed to our flower, is right there in front of us. So this is an important leaf to really model and work so that it looks very nice and realistic. So again, I'm going to use my sap green here. I already laid in some green. I'm going to use my sap green and darken this. I already have some veins in here that we put in with our white pencil previously. So I'm going to go ahead and model this with first our green, and I already added in our red violet, but now we want to get this green in here. So I'm starting with the sap green, and then I'm going to go to dark green, and I'm also going to use some of my Delft blue in here to create some shadows and some other variegation. So let's just continue to model here, and there you have it. To clean up, because when you're working with colored pencil, it's always good to actually put a piece of paper down for your hand to rest on. But as you work, some of the dust from the colored pencil will smear. So using a kneaded eraser, basically I go through and just around all the edges, just to crisp them up. It'll clean up very nicely, and you can even see marks in here where I've already picked up some of the red. The red, you're going to pick up some in the greens. And once you just touch and pull, it sharpens up the line. Then knead your eraser to clean it and also create an edge, a sharp edge. And you can see that we can just go around and pick up, pick up any residual dust that's accumulated here from working. Also, since I'm working on a 9x12 sheet of paper, what I did is I actually added a frame, and I'm going to zoom back out here. You can't really see it as good on here, so I'm going to go back to my reference drawing, and you can see how I put a frame around this 9x12 sheet of paper. You can then mat up to this line. Stay tuned for more episodes of Materials and Methods Matter. Materials and Methods Matter was inspired by my book, Making Art, Materials and Techniques for Today's Artist. For more videos on Materials and Methods Matter, as well as lesson plans and other instructional videos, visit Thalo.com.